webinar is quite different. Different in the sense that we are trying to do something beyond orthopedics. So on behalf of Jharkhand Orthopedic Association, in association with OrthoTV, I welcome you all to today's webinar. And it's going to be different, as I said, because today we have got a very distinguished speaker and writer with us. And for the rest of the proceedings, I would request Dr. R C Jha sir to take over and start today's program. Dr. R C Jha sir, please.
थैंक यू निर्मल। नमस्कार मित्रों, ऑर्थोपेडिक्स पे हम लोग चर्चा करते रहते हैं। अपने विषय पे हम लोग सब प्रोफेशनल हैं और चिकित्सक हैं। तो शुरुआत में मैं एक चीज जिससे आप लोग भी सहमत हो शेयर करना चाहता हूं कि हमारा जो पेशा है उसको अच्छा पेशा नहीं माना गया है। परंपरागत रूप से कहा जाता है कि वैद्य वृत्तिश्च दुर्वृत्तिश्च पर दुखेन दुखिता। वैद्य चिकित्सकों का पेशा अच्छा पेशा क्यों नहीं है कि हम लोग दूसरों के दुख से दुखी रहते हैं। इस दुख से छुटकारा कैसे मिलेगा? तो कभी कभी आज के आयोजन जैसा कुछ आयोजन हो कि हम लोग अपने रोजमर्रे के काम से अपने मरीज और अपने विषय के इतर कुछ अन्य विषयों पे चर्चा करें और अपने मस्तिष्क के लिए कुछ खुराक इकट्ठा करें और कुछ रिलैक्स्ड फील करें। तो आज के इस वेबिनार में हमारे साथ एक बहुत ही प्रसिद्ध, मैं कहना चाहूंगा, एक एकेडमिशियन और राइट ऑथर लेखक श्री विवेकानंद झा जी मौजूद हैं और उनसे ही वार्तालाप होगा। मजे की बात यह है कि विवेकानंद जी भी उनका पेशा लेखक तो बाद में पेशे से चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट हैं और साहित्य में अभिरुचि और लेखन में अभिरुचि उनके अंदर जागृत हुई। तब से वो अपना बहुत ज्यादा समय लेखन और पठन पाठन में ही लगा रहे हैं। आज निर्मल ने मुझे इस कार्यक्रम में सूत्रधार की भूमिका में लाके खड़ा कर दिया। तो पता लगा कि मेरे और विवेकानंद जी में कुछ सामान्य बात, जो एक जैसी बातें हैं। हम लोग दोनों बिहार के मिथिला क्षेत्र से आते हैं, लेकिन संयोगवश पैदाइश और शुरुआत की परवरिश कलकत्ते महानगरी में हुई और मैं एक चिकित्सक हूं। थोड़ी बहुत अभिरुचि मेरी भी साहित्य में है। विवेकानंद जी चार्टर्ड अकाउंट हैं, पूर्णकालिक साहित्यकार बन गए। इस छोटी सी भूमिका के साथ हम लोग आज के कार्यक्रम की शुरुआत करेंगे। तो एक बात जो मेरे मन में अभी मेरे जहन में आई कि अक्सर बचपन से अपने बुजुर्गों से, अपने विद्यालय और महाविद्यालय में कुछ विद्वान शिक्षकों से सुनता आया हूं कि साहित्य संगीत कला विहीन साक्षात पशु पुच्छ विषानहीन। तो साहित्य संगीत और कला से रहित मनुष्य पूंछ और सींग के रहित पशुओं से बेहतर नहीं है। तो आज साहित्यकार हैं, साहित्य पे चर्चा होगी। तो प्रश्न ये उठता है कि साहित्य की परिभाषा क्या होगी। विवेकानंद जी विद्वान हैं, हम लोगों को और इस पर प्रकाश डालेंगे इस विषय पर। लेकिन एक लाइन की व्याख्या अगर या एक लाइन का इंट्रोडक्शन देना हो तो मेरी अपनी समझ ये है कि ज्ञान और अनुभव के संचित कोश को हम लोग साहित्य कह सकते हैं। और साहित्य वाचिक भी हो सकता है, लिखित भी हो सकता है। हमारे यहाँ वाचिक साहित्य की बहुत लंबी परंपरा है, वेदों से उपनिषद वगैरह को देखें तो। और साहित्य में भी मुख्यतः दो ये है, गद्य और पद्य है। गद्य में कई विधाएं हैं, कहानी है, उपन्यास है, नाटक है, एकांकी है, संस्मरण है, जीवनी है। आजकल जो ब्लॉग लिखते हैं वो भी साहित्य की श्रेणी में आ सकता है। आत्मकथा है, डायरी है, निबंध है, लेख है, फीचर है। और उसके अतिरिक्त कविता है। कविता लघु कविता से लेकर महाकाव्य तक हो सकती है। तो विवेकानंद जी से मेरा पहला प्रश्न यहीं से शुरू होगा कि एक चार्टर अकाउंटेंट आप बने, अपनी पढ़ाई लिखाई और प्रशिक्षण से अचानक आपके मन में साहित्य सृजन की भावना कहाँ से उत्पन्न हुई, और क्यों आपको लगता है कि सबको थोड़ा बहुत साहित्य लेखन पठन पाठन के अतिरिक्त करना चाहिए? विवेकानंद जी।
Thanks a lot, sir. In fact, before I kickstart this particular proceeding and before I start answering to the question that just raised by our honorable anchor, Dr. Sri R C Jha, I would like to just inform large number section of viewers that I am privileged, in fact, divinely privileged to be a part and parcel of today's very unique and spectacular bandwagon. Before and just to be a part of this bandwagon, it is all because of my acquaintance with Dr. Sri Nirmal Kumarji. And just somehow, coincidentally, I came in touch with Dr. Nirmal Kumarji. And there, more or less, because of our very commonality of interest, which converged on this, on literature, he too evinces a lot of interest in literature. Somehow the bonding got strengthened. My dear viewers, today I am also privileged to be, logging in from that of this great citadel, a spiritual citadel of the world, that is Banaras, and most importantly from Pilgrim Publishing House, which has a unique ambience. It is one of the most valued publishers, in as much as it keeps on publishing all sort of religious and spiritual books, and it is the publication house is founded by Sri Ramanand Tiwari ji, who happens to be himself a visionary leader with a tremendous amount of foresightedness. So this is a unique privilege for me, that, and most importantly, as you all would appreciate, Banaras happens to be the a political constituency of the incumbent prime minister. So from varied and even much before that, Banaras enjoys a unique place, in the spirituality, in the evolution of spirituality, in as much as it was in the lanes and bylanes of Banaras, great Adi Sankaracharya had penned the great stanzas of Bhaj Govindam, that is, Ma Kuru Dhanajan Jauban Garbam, Harati Nimesat Kala Sharbam, Maya Maya Mida Makilang Buddha, Brahma Padam Tam Pravashibhiditva. So, giving just all this sort of background, description was all the more important, just to illustrate the point that how much, glad and how much blessed I stand today to be a part of this unique and spectacular bandwagon, where I am directly in conversation with one of the very, very, stalwart professional, Dr. Sri R C Jha, and of course Dr. Nirmal ji and all the galaxy of orthopedic surgeons who today are part of this very unique bandwagon. Coming as Honorable Dr. Saab has raised a very important, very pertinent question. Actually, it's not that it has some sort of a story or a history to my evolution as a writer, as an author. Where actually, as Dr. Jha says, I basically, I trace my ancestry from Madhubani district, much like him, but personally, I am born and brought up in Calcutta. So there, I was studying in a Hindi medium school up to class 4th standard, so far as my recollection goes. Later, when my sisters got admitted into English medium institutions, I too followed suit. But there began all my travails, all my misery, because coming all the way from Hindi medium to English medium, especially when I stood first in the class, and then switching over to English medium because of the fashion and fascination, all sort of ordeals by fire, all sort of trials and tribulations just awaited me when, I jumped from Hindi to English medium background. I do recall very vividly that very incident which had almost metamorphosed me into a different sort of person, or rather into an earnest student in quest for unraveling the treasure trove of the bounty of that of the anglicized wisdom. It so happened in the class when I was hiding behind all my students as a backbencher because I would dare not face the teachers who list that my teacher or list the teacher would just ask questions in English which I wouldn't be able to respond properly. So I had that sort of fear or apprehension in my mind, and therefore I sat at the back, hiding myself on under behind other students. But one day I was caught unaware when teacher straightway questioned me that whether I had shown the homework that she had assigned to all of us. Now, unable to, or rather, since I had to respond to her question, and that too, with all sorts of promptness, I was groping for the appropriate words. And then I recall I just said, I hastened to add that I saw you, teacher. What exactly I would have said, and what legitimately I would have said, I showed you, teacher, I have shown you, teacher, but inadvertently, I just tried to hasten up or just struggled for the proper syntax formation, and inadvertently, I just said, I saw you, teacher, which evoked some sort of derision on the part of my classmates. It was some sort of ridiculing, laughter, some sort of sarcasm, which really shriveled me into a deeper state of depression. I began seriously pondering it. I began seriously reflecting on my own weaknesses and vulnerabilities, where learning English became a daunting challenge for me because I found myself nowhere vis-a-vis that of my classmates, and there as to how to measure up to the expectations of the class, as to how to be at par with the rest of the students. That was the daunting challenge. That was the genuine, you can say, the sort of issue which stared nakedly at my face. And then began a very, very mount, you can say, a Mitra like tapasya. Time and time again, I keep on outrightly dubbing this particular adage, Mitra, because you wouldn't believe, just coincidentally, I write, because being an everyday writer, today I wrote a treatise, whereupon I try to reflect, just I visited in down the memory lane to recall those very, those days, those nightmarish years when I spent so much of my time in reading the Statesman newspaper, the toast of the elites of the then denizens of Calcutta. Hours together, consulting dictionary, sweating so badly, and even developing frustration, at times getting disillusioned with all sort of, persistence to continue to struggle, even, out of sheer exasperation, feeling like just abandoning all those things. But nevertheless, again, that daunting challenge, the spirit, the stamina to be, to be in tandem with that of the rest of the students, that was the only motivation which kept me alive, which kept, which sustained my overall energy to, to be directed towards learning the alien's tongue. So that sort of interest, the sort of challenge which was accepted then, it became some sort of, what you can call it, a sort of passion, and later, as which got transformed into some sort of tapasya, and there began my serious interest in terms of learning English language. And it was that my trials and tribulations never ended there. The sort of fist of frenzy was so profound as to how I would be able to speak, let alone correctly, but how I would be able to pick up the smattering of few sentences. That was indeed a big, big challenge, a sort of humongous, stupendous challenge, staring at my face. And therefore, I just picked up, I would approach my friends who were far superior to me in terms of anglicized communication, that if they could afford some time for me so that we could converse together. In the process, I came across one of the very, well-known students who was studying in St. Xavier's, and I found that in every sentence he was discovering or finding out some loopholes or the other. Then it struck me that he was of no use to me, because if he was a censorious sort of guy who was trying to find out deficiencies or lacunae almost in every sentence. Where was the scope for me to learn further, to proceed further? So then somebody suggested that you should go for statesman, and then I sincerely and earnestly began reading English newspaper, which which was the beginning of a very, very adventurous and very, very interesting journey towards unraveling the anglicized wisdom. And that is that continued right since my schooling days, since my sophomoric years, which culminated in my evolving as a writer. So this was my very, very fascinating literary journey, which kick-started in my sophomoric years. This is my answer to your question, sir.
This partly answers my query. What I conclude by your introduction is that in an effort to learn an alien language, you devoted so much of time studying that language and literature that you ended up writing in that language. Now, my next question, what was the first thing that you wrote? A short story, a letter to the editor, a poem in a school magazine? What was your first original मौलिक लेखन आपका पहला क्या था? और उसके प्रति लोगों का, what was the reaction of your friends, family members or teachers toward that piece of writing?
Great. Actually, as I was trying to inform you, that I almost became, I was obsessed with reading the newspaper, The Statesman. And as my intimacy or my acquaintance with reading The Statesman deepened, my overwhelming interest in politics too kept a corresponding measure. So I became extremely involved in politics, in writing, in learning about politics, especially reading columns day in and day out. In Statesman in those days, the editor like Sunanda K. Dattarai would write, the weekly column. The managing director or as well as editor in chief, Sri C.R. Irani, would write a column that is caveat on every Sunday. So we would expectantly and optimistically look forward to reading his columns on Sunday. So actually, my interest in politics was profound. Of course, interest in other movies and all that, literature also were there, but especially my interest in politics was overwhelming. So given that very interesting point, so that at that interesting juncture, I would write political columns day in and day out. Like I began contributing my columns to Indian Nation, that is the newspaper which was published from Patna. So my first writing began on politics because I was extremely, interested in political journey of this country. And even I started reading books on politics and then subsequently on foreign policies, international relations. But actually, my writing is confined, to that of churning out columns on politics. That is how I began writing on politics, or how my career as a writer, took its tangible shape.
So I gather from your short introduction, I would say, that you're evolving into a full-time author, that you started writing pieces for newspapers and you got published those days. Indian Nation, Aryavat, Searchlight and Pradeep. These were the 4 newspapers available to Bihar. Of course, Kolkata had, Calcutta as it was called then, had many. But another thing common is even my teachers of English in my school would say that if you have to improve your English, read Statesman daily. And I also used to do that. Then writing pieces for newspaper, maybe op-ed page, short news, short analysis, short article. What was the next stage of evolution? And I will come to some of your famous and much talked about books, but that came many years later. What was the writing or what was the genre besides contributing to newspapers?
Great.
Next stage of Vivekanand Jha as an author.
Great, sir. Actually, as I was trying to share with you about my sophomoric years and how I graduated into writing on politics, with churning out column after column on politics. Actually, in those days, I used to read a lot. Even while I was pursuing commerce, even while I was pursuing my chartered accountancy, you'd be surprised to know that even when I would take up CA intermediate examination, later in final examination, all newspapers I would keep on stacking up. And once my examination was concluded, then day in and day out, I would just go on reading all those backlogs, all those newspapers. So actually, in those days, apart from writing, I would read a lot. Means all magazines like India Today, Outlook, the Week, Frontline, all these magazines I would read like just frantically I would go on writing. Sorry, I would go on reading, all reading all sort of books, because in those days I would read more than I would write. Yes, I would write the columns on politics, that is there, but more than writing columns, I would read a lot. Means it was means I had some sort of deep penchant, a sort of deep predilection for reading. And as and when I would come across these magazines, as I just mentioned, I would develop some sort of fist of frenzy, and I would immediately immerse myself in reading all those. So, reading, mostly I would do a lot of reading in those days, because grammatical foundation still was not, I was not on a surer, footing so far as the grammatical foundation was concerned, because I was not a student of literature. I was a student of commerce. But because of my, overwhelming interest in politics and in newspaper articles and editorials and all that, reading editorial was my obsession. As soon as I would see Statesman, Telegraph, or any newspaper in Calcutta, especially these two, because Telegraph had just sprung up and Statesman was declining. It was just a relationship between Rajesh Khanna and Amitabh Bachchan. The superstar Rajesh Khanna was on decline, and there was the corresponding ascendancy of superstar Amitabh Bachchan. Means Rajesh Khanna's superstardom was declining with the ascendancy of Amitabh Bachchan on the horizon. Likewise, the Statesman was declining and the Telegraph was on ascendancy. So then I began reading Telegraph also. But let me be very forthright in admitting the fact that I have never found Telegraph matching the elite standard of that of the Statesman, because of the great columnist and editor like Suranda K. Dattara, and of course C.R. Irani, A.G. Nurani, all those great columnists would contribute their columns. So actually, to sum up exactly, by way of my answer to such a great question of yours, sir, I would just like to say that more or less in those years, I was more into reading and writing on politics. And one thing I would like to tell you, I had a tremendous amount of interest in spirituality. In Calcutta, even in my sophomoric years, I became a regular visitor to National Library. And there I began reading Swami Vivekananda. And Swami Vivekananda was my door to unfolding and unraveling the great monist, that is Adi Sankaracharya. I began to understand the non-dualism philosophy of great Adi Sankaracharya from the eyes of that of Swami Vivekananda. So it was in National Library where my acquaintance with non-dualism and Upanishads began. So even today when I write on spirituality, day in and day out, I write on spirituality, on all non-dualism philosophy, other philosophies. My template, my foundation has been, means unequivocally, my foundation has been based on Upanishads. And those Upanishads, the knowledge of Upanishads, I could manage to imbibe or inculcate in myself from my sophomoric years when I began visiting the National Library. So in those days, it was more to learn, and in the later part, as it will come later by way of your question, sir, I began writing more and became a consummate writer, contributing almost on every front. Every conceivable front, I began contributing, but that in the subsequent years. This is my answer to your question, sir.
And that's it. Did you read any Bengali newspapers those days?
Sir, actually,
are you conversant? I can speak, I can write, I can read Bengali. Did you subscribe to those Bengali newspapers? They're very popular. Still, Anand Bajar Patrika has a huge circulation, and it was popular even then. Telegraph came much later.
Great, sir.
Any introduction to Bengali newspapers, and then again original writings of Bengali authors of those days. They contributed a lot to the Renaissance of West Bengal.
Yes, great, sir. Actually, this is my formidable regret. I am very influenced by Bengali, but unfortunately, rather paradoxically and ironically, I remained aloof from learning Bengali literature. And this is, as I already said, this is my formidable regret. Because when I read Gitanjali of Gurudev Tagore, its English version, I really, I am left with a profundity of regret that, alas, the sort of atonement, the sort of deep repentance almost stirs me into the state of, into the state of, into the inanimate state of, you can say into the inanimate state of, gobsmacked state, I would say, into a gobsmacked state, or into the state of deep transfixion that, alas, I would have had an exposure to Bengali language. Since the youth cannot be called back, it has become a big regret for me.
But it's never too late. Never too late to begin. You can still start following Bengali, because original. We do get very good translation of works of famous Bengali authors. Prose can be translated to a large extent, but poetry, I believe, loses its subtle nuances in translation. Anyway, that's beside. Then you started writing, and what was the first book or your writing that was published in a book form, and from where? Which publisher? Because two of your books are very much in public domain and much talked about. One is Why Main Bihari Hoon. Yes, I am a Bihari. That is, and then The Living Legends of Mithila. What was your first original writing that was published from a publishing house? What was your first reaction, and what were your expectations from that published work? 2-3 questions, but almost in the same line, so I clubbed them together. What was your first publication? From which publishing house? What was your expectation from the published work, and how was it taken up by those who actually got to read your published works?
Great, sir. Actually, before I respond to this very important question, it becomes all the more incumbent on my part to dwell, I wouldn't say at length, but nevertheless, just to give it by way of a passing reference, rather to, just to insinuate about the very incident which took place in my, when my first column got published in Indian Nation in Patna. I was in Patna coincidentally when I wrote the first column, and I got the news that it got published. You wouldn't believe I ran frantically just to have a look at the newspaper, which that is Indian Nation, which purportedly claimed to have published my first column. So it showed that how much fascinated I was in terms of writing and in terms of just being witness to my name getting inscribed in the newspaper. So actually, as I would write columns and all that, but my first book I wrote, that is yes, I can achieve. Yes, because I was teaching in management college as the viewers would be actually I have a very different characteristics, a very different traits, because though I studied a lot during chartered accountancy, but I never took fancy of the profession. Even when I was in the auditing assignment and all that, I was, there wasn't much of love between me and my professor. I would rather take up the teaching assignment. I would teach in management college. Subsequently, I taught the British Chartered Accountancy, that is ACCA, Association of Chartered Certified Accountants of Glasgow, that is of Scotland, in Delhi. Now, coming to the very important point. So, since having had a very thorough and a meticulous exposure to that of the management world, I was loaded with lots of ideas about management studies, case studies, and all that. So, my first book I wrote was Yes, I Can Achieve. And prior to my writing Yes, I Can Achieve, Shiv Kheraji had already written Yes, you can win, you can win. He had already written a couple of years before. My book was absolutely based on a different concept. It was altogether a different concept, because it is an illustration of myriad case studies in the book Yes, I Can Achieve. Whereas Sivkharaji's means the concept behind writing his own book was diametrically different from that of mine. But then the people who read it, my publisher was Wisdom Publication, Delhi. The readers who read my book, three publishers had given their consent. They gave their acceptance to go ahead with the publication of my book. But since Wisdom Publication was the first one, and given the fact that it was my first book that I wrote, I just opted for the Wisdom Publication, whose offer came to me, as the first offer. So it was this book I wrote, which was full of case studies. Many of the readers who subsequently, provided me with their feedbacks, they were of the opinion that my book was no different from that of Shiv Khera in terms of adding value to the readers. But unfortunately, actually, what I did, apart from the motivational leadership angle, I also explored the technique of learning English communication. Like so many pronunciation part, I try to emphasize or cover in my book. Yes, I Can Achieve. Like pronounce the words like restaurant. People say restaurant, restaurant. I have often seen, even in Shastri Bhavan in Delhi, I saw many IAS officers mispronouncing the word entrepreneur as entrepreneur. Even once or twice I pointed out to them about their mistakes, but I found that they are so stubborn, they are so obstinate that they would never bother to correct themselves. So then I just discontinued pinpointing their mistake. But these are the things I try to teach in my book, Yes, I Can Achieve. How to correct one's pronunciation part. Like it should be entrepreneur. Even today, I find many people, they keep on, mispronouncing certain English words. Like especially entrepreneur, restaurant, subpoena, like court order, subpoena. So there are so many words where I find people faltering when they, in terms of correctly pronouncing them. So I covered all that in my Yes, I Can Achieve, which by way of a hindsight realization or a hindsight experience, I think I would better have skipped those, in my book, Yes, I Can Achieve. Then I could have done the greater justice to the readers, because readers complained to me that, sir, we were almost all together in a different plane. But then all of a sudden, by teaching us English, you brought us, so means harshly on the surface. So then I pondered it, and I found that their growls or their complaints or the way they grumbled, that were justified. Probably I just committed that particular that particular mistake by way of including even communication part in my book, Yes I Can Achieve. That was my first book. Then later I wrote, after Yes I Can Achieve, I wrote Yes I Am Bihari, as you have very correctly said. This is a book, it is a novel fiction based on facts. You all, the viewers, can recollect the students in the year 2008, means at the end of 2007, they had gone to Mumbai to take the railway examination, especially from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. They were brutally assaulted by certain Marathi politicians. And when I went to Mumbai, I just undertook a deep inquiry and a deep and extensive inquiry and investigation to write my novel, Yes, I Am Bihari. And Dr. Jha sahab, I would like to tell you a very important background behind it. When I was staying in Calcutta, in my sophomoric years, or even during the days of my juvenility, I would often come across many taunts, sarcasms, censorious remarks, comments, and sometimes, since I was mingling with all sort of Bengali friends, Bengali boys, often they would they would comment very in a very in a very denigrating terms, like they often use such pejoratives as mero. It's a very
Mero.
derogatory reference for the people with the lesser, may I say, for the lesser mortals. So I was pretty surprised. It would just confound me. I would stand bewildered by such remarks being passed, and often sending me into deeper and deeper introspection. That what was wrong with us Biharis, us Maithils? Why would us Maithils be considered to be the sons and daughters of lesser gods? Those were the questions which caused a deep turmoil, or which tormented me day in and day out. Then I began a thorough search in terms of knowing who am I, what is the background of Mithila, what is the background of Bihar. I started reading Yagnabalika and Gargi's, scholarly debate, Sankara Misra's Balo Hak Jagdarandang, Vidyapati's, Kalidasas, all these, I just threw a searchlight into their illustrious works to to draw some sort of inference about my own, all these. And let me tell you a very interesting incident. When I went to Delhi, I was traveling in a bus, and I was very new, stranger to that particular, to the metropolis. So I was just trying to figure out that whether I had reached my destination or not. I was supposed to get down at Lajpat Nagar. Some co-passenger, seeing my state of doldrum, seeing that I was in seeing the stage of my indecisiveness, instantly quipped, "Lagta hai Bihari hai." This is the way he commented in Hindi. "Lagta hai Bihari hai." It caused a deep heartburn in me. I instantly sought back. What do you think of Bihari's gentlemen? Biharis contribute towards the largest pool of IAS officers in this country. That man was immediately taken aback. He seldom expected somebody against whom he was
God.
passing such a derogatory comment would immediately shot back. That would make him to come on the back foot instantly. So he said that, "No, I didn't mean all that." Then he started singing peans and hosanas for Biharis. So again, when I went to Mumbai, again, I began my investigation, and I found I met, interacted, interviewed many auto rickshaw walas, and they told me about their miseries, how they were brutally assaulted by that of the goons of Raj Thackeray. And means even one auto rickshaw wala began weeping, began crying. The moment I passed on the piece of information to him that I was in the process of writing a book, He said, "Sir, mat मारिए, mat लिखिए नहीं तो फिर हम लोगों को मारेगा." I said, "Don't worry. Nobody will beat you." I met Sanjay Nirupam, the Congress leader then. He was in BJP. He was in Congress then. So I met Sanjay Nirupam ji. I wanted to meet Raj Thackeray ji and Bala Sahib Thackeray ji, but somehow I could not meet. So this book, Yes I Am Bihari, is a very balanced book, which is the first book in the world on sub-nationalism, which is going to be an explosive issue for the nation, for the very unity and integrity of the nation, how this sub-nationalism plays a very pivotal and an explosive role that the book encompasses in its meticulous details. After Yes I Am Bihari, you have very correctly said, even before Yes I Am Bihari, I wrote, and let me inform you, Dr. Jha Sahib, and through you to all your viewers, I wrote in 2014, Delhi Beckons Raga for Namo. It is a book, well, Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji launched in the Vibrant Gujarat Education Summit. Hitherto, he has launched only one book on himself, that is my book in Vibrant Gujarat Education Summit. Then I also wrote 56 inches again before 2019 general election, and by the grace of divine, Modi ji had won that election. And then I wrote, after again a pioneer book in the world, after the abrogation of Article 370 of Indian Constitution, the making of Narendra Modi, unmaking of Jawaharlal, a first book in the wake of abrogation of Article 370. And then again, I wrote, that is based on the illustrious life of Sri Saryu Rai, the people's leader. And very recently I have written again before 2024, Narendra Damodar Das Modi, No More Apologist, is my book, a unique book which was launched in the press club in Ranchi on 15th of September 2023. This is the book which was launched by Sri Saryu Rai ji in the Ranchi Press Club. And very recently, sir, with your permission, I have written a unique this book, which has been dubbed by Sri Pravas Misraji, a Coal India General Manager, as Avigyan Sakuntalam of 21st century. It is a unique novel based on the lifestyle in Mithila and Metropolis, Calcutta. This is published by by Diamond Publisher, by Sri Narendra Verma ji has published this book, Diamond Publisher, and Suresh ji is a very competent editor who has edited this book. So these are the some of the books. I've already written 11 books till date, and 12th book is about to be published, which is a biography, spiritual biography on a very, very important saint, Swami Umakantanand Saraswati Maharaj, Mahamandaleswar in Juna Akhara. So these are my journey for for writing books. This is what I have to say, sir. Please.
Excellent,
So
excellent
the
journey
politics.
so far. So with due permission of Dr. R C Jha, the moderator for today's session, I would like to come in because certain questions are poured in, and probably we need to take up those questions because our topic for today was like joy of writing,
Writing.
and everyone and anyone can write. So that takes me back to the very pertinent question, which I would like which I'd like Vivekanand Jha sir to answer. Why one should write? I mean, why it's important to write? That may be in the form of journal, that could be in form of a very formal book or whatever. But then, why one should write? If you could just throw some light on that, sir.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Sri Nirmal ji. My dear viewers, before I respond to Dr. Sri Nirmal ji's question, let me just share my perception about him. He is a very competent doctor, most importantly, having a tremendous amount of interest in in literature, having a very good literary flow. Now, actually, I was as our honored anchor, Dr. Jha was just asking about the books I have written thus far. So I have only exposed a particular aspect and dimension of my life. Now, as Dr. Sri Nirmalji would be corroborating my observation, by the grace of divine, people say that I am the fewest of few people in the country and the world who write on daily basis. And when I write on daily basis, I write on spirituality, I write on culture, I write on Upanishad, I write on Vedas, especially on Upanishads. I write on literary figures. I write on my interpretation about great books like Alchemist, like Siddhartha, like then Munshi Premchandji's mother of Maxim Gorky. So I keep on writing every day. Now coming to the very, very vital question raised by Dr. Nirmalji. Why should a person write? You see, writing mirrors the personality of a person because writing is a way to unraveling or reaching divinity. I recall in this very context, Michael Jackson, one of the greatest dancers of this world, in course of one of his interaction, has emphasized on this very important point that he tends to reach the divine through his dance. For me, though at a very microcosmic level, writing is my way to reaching divine. This is the way when writing reflects the personality, as I said, that when what you write for the readers, readers is trying to dissect your persona through your writings. The way you write, you define your persona. And why should one write? Because writing is the way of defining one's persona. It is a way of discovering new and new horizons. It is a way for seeking a union with divine. So, a writing basically, one has to undertake writing because writing, honestly speaking, has no profession. What exactly it wants dedication, devotion, and one's passion, and one's penchant and predilection for expressing oneself. If you want to express oneself, express yourself, there can be myriad ways of doing it. And writing is the first and foremost way of expressing your persona through the choice of your words and phrases. You are just expressing yourself. So this is why one should write, because to write means to express yourself. To you are unraveling yourself before the whole world. You are trying to share your experience. What I do in course of my everyday writing, I only share my experience. I only share, my own personality traits. I only try to express divinity through my writings. So this is what one should do, because writing gives an eloquent expression to your persona, and that is why one should write. A doctor, despite being a very busy professional people, there is no denying the fact, but despite their preoccupation, their obsessions, their other sundry activities, if they keep on writing, it is very, very refreshing for them too, because they are expressing a very hidden part of their personality. And by writing, by expressing their personality in writing, they are exposing their another hidden part to the outside world. This is why one should write. This is my answer to your question, Dr. Sri Nirmalji.
Points well taken, sir. I think that would definitely answer to the greatest satisfaction to the queries because it was like raised by one of our viewers. So that takes me to the next question. Like that definitely we have very well explained like why one should write. But then how does one start? Suppose somebody like has never done that thing and he has got but lots of ideas and topics or maybe experiences to share through one's writing. Then how does one start? What would be your like from your own experience and maybe your own journey in the literary world? How do you recommend or say suggest one should start writing?
Great, sir. Actually, let, my journey of writing has been through a very labyrinthine path. It was a very, very complicated process. It was never a smooth sailing. Because let me share with you, Dr. Saab, and to the larger audience, that when I began writing, I never knew how to type on computer. And prior to that, I would like to share a very, very important experience of mine with a larger audience. that in the year 2000, actually I was very, very devoted towards writing and towards learning. In the year 2000, I went to the office of RSS. I am not an RSS, integral part of RSS, but because of some important strategic issue, I went to the office of RSS Jhandenwala, Delhi, and I expressed my desire to meet the then coordinator between RSS and Atal Bihari Vajpayee government, Sri Madan Das Deviji. He was a chartered accountant by profession. Madan Das Deviji outright refused to meet me because of his other preoccupations. I wrote a letter to him. I said that whether to catch a glimpse of the deity inside, I need some special priest who might be in the good book of the deity. So I questioned all that. I raised the question, and subsequently I got a call from Mr. Mahesh Chandra Sharma, who was the Rajya Sabha member, and I had a meeting. He said to me, and I remember because more than 2 decades had passed, but the man had said to me, and it was a blessing in disguise for me. It was some sort of boon for me. He said to me, कि विवेकानंद जी, आप लिखते रहिए. आपने जो ये चिट्ठी लिखा है, मैं जानता हूं. मैंने उनको, and I told him that, sir, what to do? I am writing every day, but no newspapers are not publishing. He said to me that, Vivekanand ji, don't worry about it. You keep on writing. A time will come when entire India will know you. Still, I have not risen to that height. But he said to me, seeing that particular those letter, the contents of that letter. So, Dr. Saab, what I'm trying to say is very simple. A journey towards writing has never been very smooth sailing. I used to write in paper because I never knew how to type. You would be surprised to know I would write in so many papers and then spend money for getting them typed and then would send it to the newspapers. But even that, there was some sort of fanaticism in me towards writing. Even in the dead of night, I would wake up if I developed some idea, wrote it, scribbled it on the piece of paper, deleted it, again rewrote it. So there was some frantic effort towards writing. Now coming to a very important question, that how would a person who indeed has a deep interest or a deep predilection for writing, but despite all that, some sort of inward hesitancy is preventing him from going ahead because of lack of appropriate phrases, because of lack of stock of vocabulary. There might be some sort of stumbling block. There is no denying the fact. But then, where there is a will, there is a way. If you indeed want to express yourself, words will automatically flow over your lips. Because if the earnestness of urge and aspiration is so very overwhelming, the words will keep flowing. In Autobiography of a Yogi, there is a very, very important, important paragraph is given there. When a person experiences nirvikalpa samadhi, where that is what great Adi Shankara defines in century of verses: mind nor intellect nor ego feeling, sky nor earth nor metal am I am he, breast spirit I am he. So basically, at the stage of nirvikalpa samadhi cannot be captured in the canvas of words, because the experience is so very intimate. It is so very, it is so the behemoth of the experience has no, means you can say that the adequacy of words cannot, do not have the proper potential to describe that unique experience. So what I'm trying, but still, Autobiography of a Yogi has tried to capture that experience through the canvas of words. So what I'm trying to suggest is very simple. It can be, the words will start flowing if a man has that desire of the soul and his heart to express himself. The power of expression, he will definitely, he will definitely acquire. He will definitely even, master it if the aspiration becomes acute or aspiration becomes very earnest. This is my answer to your question, sir.
Very well answered, sir. I think that would definitely satisfy the people who raise the queries. And the next question would be like, sir, once we have
I beg your pardon. Just one more thing. Let me explain you that how it is possible. Yes, since as I already informed just prior to the commencement of our this ongoing great session, great historic memorable session, I would just like to share my little experience. Yesterday, two Spanish girls visited this great bookshop of pilgrims. It is in Durga Kund in Banaras. Lot of new publishers, great foreign publishers are coming every day, and I am interacting. I'm having the chance or opportunity of interacting with them. Yesterday, two Spanish girls came, and you would appreciate Spanish people are not very fluent in English. They always have the shortage of words. They are unable to describe their feelings and expression. But see, you call it as a miracle or you call it as a surprise. We were at ease in in conversing with each other, even with very few vocabularies. They were able to communicate what they intended to communicate, and even with a greater amount of vocabularies at our disposal, we could communicate what we intended to communicate. So when there is a will, when there is an urge and aspiration to communicate, the words can never be an handicap, it can never be a constant, it can never be an impediment. Thank you, sir. Please.
It's a very good example to give, sir. Definitely, words and your maybe vocabulary limitation should not come in way of being an author. So, like as I said, once we saw our urge and also willingness and efforts we start pouring in. So, how does exactly you kind of start building your thoughts? Suppose you want to write on a particular subject, sir. Like, so do you read about it? I mean, specifically, you go back and to your library or to a collection of whatever literature is it at your disposal, or is it like you try to weave all the thought process at the in between? Maybe you'd like to refer and as and when needed the literature back. So what would be the best way to go to read about something in depth before trying to embark upon that particular writing subject we want? Or is it like to start writing spontaneously, whatever it comes to our mind, and then go on referring and in between seeing like what is available already there in literature?
Thank you, sir. Actually, you would appreciate that the spontaneity comes only after one's deep acquaintance with the subjects. Whatever topic you are choosing to write upon, that the topic, you have to be well versed with that topic, well versed with that subject. Spontaneity can come only after the voracious reading of books in the past. This is one thing, because you would appreciate that, or as sometimes it also happens, the straight thought can also come in your mind. There is no denying the fact. As you become, as you begin thinking, as you begin evincing interest in terms of writing, thoughts, your mind is full of thoughts. There is no denying the fact. But the seriousness of your writings can only assume a greater sense of gravity only when you have a profound knowledge of that particular subject. And with the profundity of knowledge, it opens the door for wisdom, because knowledge alone cannot be the key to wisdom. The knowledge, when harnessed, and the experience which is harnessed in the myriad perspective, that only can lead to wisdom. And when once you become an embodiment or epitome of wisdom, your writing, the very gravity of your writing, the degree and the magnitude of your writing almost goes on increasing by leaps and bounds. It goes on causing a greater and a profound impression in the minds of your readers. So a writer should read a lot, and in the idea which germinates in his mind, he should immediately give a shape to it. At the initial stage, he can go on writing, omitting it, again rewriting. For instance, when I write, Dr. Saab, you read most of my pieces on WhatsApp, because you will find very rarest of rare people who writes every day on WhatsApp. I never check. Some mistakes stay, but I don't even bother to. I don't have time also. I don't even bother to say that where I committed a mistake. Neither do I have the time. thought comes in my mind and I go on, producing my thoughts, verbatim in terms of words and phrases. But now the moot question arises. All these, since I spent years after years in reading and learning from experience, so thoughts comes and I keep on writing. Doctors, those who are very, very learned doctors, because in order to be a qualified doctor, one has to read a lot, and indubitably. So a doctor is a most profound learner, and when once he or she begins writing, I'm sure he or she, it is a matter of time, this he or she will start playing with the words, and words, stock of words will automatically flow, because the practice has to be sustained. You begins writing something and again words do not come to your mind, or even if you write, you just delete it, you think it is not correct, and then you say, okay, I'll do it later. Then that later, that appropriate time will never come. But when you write it, send it, you write it, send it, because why most of the people are not good English speakers? Because they are always skeptical, they are always afraid, they always have an English phobia, that if I speak, in front of someone, and if I commit a mistake, it would be a big blunder. In my case, it happened in Calcutta when I was trying to learn English, speaking or English conversation. Anand, Mr. Anand was my just 1 year senior to me. He's a very talented man. He's chartered cost accountant today. He was reading a lot of English novels in those days. So I recall two incidents. I greeted him once. I said, "Wish your good luck." He immediately said, "No, it would be wish you a good luck." I felt depressed that even one means he pinpointed my mistake. Again, one day he found a mistake. So I automatically became enervative, in the sense that, oh my God, if I speak something and it proves to be incorrect, and if the concerned person instantly pinpoints, then definitely I'll be exposed to some sort of ridicule. So it became a big constant, or you can say, means it became it deterred me from going ahead. It happens with everyone. But then again, I broke that particular shackle. I broke that particular jinx, that no, I have to speak, whether correctly or incorrectly, I have to go on speaking. So once you begin with that sort of, robust resolve, that I have to go ahead, come what may, obviously you are born to succeed. So when you begin writing, you should be absolutely unconcerned about the mistakes in syntax formation, mistakes in terms of the appropriate usage of phrases or words. You just have to go on writing and writing, and fluent proficiency in writing will automatically evolve, but it will take its own trajectory. It has its own trajectory. We have to go on traversing that trajectory in order to attain perfection. This is what I would say.
Points well taken. So I think that should be more than sufficient for anybody aspiring to be an author, or for that matter, to be a kind of willing to write on different varied subjects. You're definitely very much inspired and guided by whatever you all said right now. So with that, like because of paucity of time and limitations, probably we may have to wind up this session. But all I can say is, sir, it was like wonderful listening to your literary world's journey, and the way you shared your experiences. It was like mind blowing, I would say. And extremely sorry. This I had to get in because I was getting these questions, and I thought like it would be important to take up these questions. So my sincere apologies to Dr. R C Jha
Oh, no, no,
for
no.
getting into this. And
You,
maybe with that
you
we can go
shared,
on
you
and on.
shared my responsibilities and so very well. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you
But
so much, sir.
before we
So
close,
with that, like
just I wanted to add to
sure.
what Vivekanand Ji said. This is about poetry, and this is a very famous saying of Keats. What is poetry? He said it is the spontaneous outburst of powerful emotions of the heart. This can be said about any form of literature, not daily newspaper writing, but spontaneous outburst of powerful emotions of the heart is what we call literature. It was for poetry. That is how he defined poetry. And another thing that we need to share with our enlightened audience, august audience, that when you write, you don't have to bother about who will be the potential readers and what will be their reaction. That's again, I'm going back. I have a little fascination for things from the past, which we have been reading since our childhood. Bhavbhuti wrote Uttar Ramcharit. This is a famous book, many hundred years back. And somebody asked him a question कि साहब आप जो लिख रहे हैं इसको पढ़ेगा कौन और समझेगा कौन. तो उसका जो उन्होंने जवाब दिया वो जवाब सबके सामने रहना चाहिए. उन्होंने कहा कि उच्च पश्यते तु मम कोपि समान धर्म कालो ह्ययम निरवधिर विपुलाच पृथ्वी. I'll translate it. ये पृथ्वी, ये दिस अर्थ विराट विपुलाच पृथ्वी भी बहुत बड़ी है. उस समय जिस समय वो भवभूति उन्होंने लिखा था उत्तर रामचरित्र, उसमें पृथ्वी का कितना ये है डायमेंशन है, कितना डायमीटर है, शायद पता भी ना हो, लेकिन पृथ्वी बहुत बड़ी है, आज भी बहुत बड़ी है. और काल को उन्होंने कहा कि निरवधि है. ये तो काल को नापा नहीं जा सकता है, उसको लिमिट में नहीं बांध सकते हैं. तो उनका जवाब ये था कि किसी कालखंड में किसी भी समय पृथ्वी के किसी भी कोने में कोपि समान धर्मा, मेरे समान धर्म, समान धर्म जैसे मैं डॉक्टर हूं और डॉक्टर निर्मल ऑर्थोपेडिक सर्जन है, हम लोग समान धर्मा है, चिकित्सक भी हैं, एक ही स्पेशलिटी है. तो मेरे समान अर्थात कोई साहित्य का रसिक किसी भी कालखंड में पृथ्वी के किसी भी कोने में पैदा होगा तो वो मेरा पढ़ेगा और समझेगा तो मेरी मेहनत सार्थक हो जाएगी. दिस इज व्हाट आई कैन से अबाउट लिटरेचर. थैंक यू निर्मल. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, introducing me to Vivekanand Ji, and first of all, thinking of something beyond orthopedics, as you said. It's been an
I would like
enjoyable
you to extend
one more
vote of
addition.
thanks to sir.
One more addition, just one
Sure,
more thing. Actually, as respected Dr. R C Jha ji had just now said, pertaining to poetry, let me share with your large audience of such competent, qualified, doctors who are, whose position is akin to that of earthly God. I would like to share with them about when spoken about poetry, there is no age for writing. A person can start writing at any, at any time or at any age. I recall in this context one of the immortal, the poetry or immortal poem of that of Lord Tennyson, where that is, I hope to see my pilot face to face with the crossing of the bar. When I have crossed the bar, sunset and a evening star, a clear call for me. May there be no mourning at the bar when I am put out to sea. I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar. This particular poetry or poem was recited by Lord Tennyson when he was already beyond 80, when he was already an octogenarian. And he recited this poem to his son. And lo and behold, the moment his son heard that particular poem, he immediately, it was promptly he said that this poem will immortalize you in the annals of time and in the process, in history. And this is what Dr. Jha Sahab says, that spontaneity, the outburst of spontaneity can also immortalize a person. Like what Dr. Tennyson wrote this poem when he was already beyond 80, but it became timeless. The essence or the sense of timelessness was attached to this poetry, which was an emotional outburst of the soul seeking its expression through the penmanship of a man who was bedridden and was almost on the threshold of knocking at the different world altogether. So that is the beauty of writing.
निर्मल के लिए एक संदेश. डॉक्टर्स भी अच्छे लेखक हुए हैं और होते रहेंगे, You must have read Of Human Bondage by Somerset Maugham. Somerset Maugham was a doctor, and he was a Nobel laureate for literature. So you keep on writing. Maybe you started on Facebook blog.
I'm very sure today's session would have inspired and is going to definitely inspire many more like us. Oh, I should not be saying like we are established or kind of regular writer, but then we do try write something. And I personally know you, so even Dr. R C Jha, sir, I'm talking about you. Like you also had a very kind of flamboyant this thing journey, and you were quite involved in different forms of literature, including journalism too. And at the end, you remain and you are a very renowned and well respected name in field of orthopedics in this part of country. So no doubt about it. Like literature is something which is in our hearts, and we all as human beings have got so many things to express, and there can be nothing a better medium than writing, because that even after we are gone, and the writing remains. Like as I was giving example of Ramayana, and it's a country of katha and gatha. So whatever was kisi ne kaha tha, that becomes a story, and whatever someone must have sang in the form of songs, that became gaya tha, gatha. So we got lots of katha and gathas that definitely should inspire us to write more and more to express ourselves. And I'll just be concluding with a few more lines to add, especially with respect to our profession. We always feel that we are like, although we interact with human beings and we are compared next to, like Etzer said, God, but we always feel that we are wounded healers, because probably people don't understand our feelings. So many times we are unable to express ourselves so well. So I think that's another way, that's another reason why all of us, all doctors in particular, should start writing. That way they will be able to communicate better, and they will be able to tell whatever they want to tell the whole world, their stories, their sufferings, maybe the way they wanted people to behave with this profession or professionals. Or sometimes, like as they said, they have got so many agonies and complaints against government establishments, where they feel that they are not able to do whatever best they could do, especially in times of COVID and all, as we have seen. So probably with that, this thing, I would like to extend my hearty thanks on behalf of Jharkhand Orthopedics Association to Vivekanand Jha sir. And I just couldn't, when I thought of having this session webinar, I just couldn't have any other better name coming to my mind than Vivekanand Jha sir, because I had been off late interacting a lot. Had said that was also coincidental. And I just couldn't attend to his book launch, which he had invited me, and I was quite privileged and honored. But because of sudden demise of my mother, so definitely I was looking forward to interacting with so. So it was a golden opportunity. I've got again from core of my heart, 1,000 words to thank Dr. R C Jha sir for conducting this session so well, and I'm sure like we will be having one session with R C Jha sir, and maybe I would ask Vivekanand Jha sir to be the anchor in that, and we can be hearing a lot about what actually, as a doctor, an author wants to say or kind of have got express to the world. So with that, I would like also extend my sincere thanks to OrthoTV, who are always eager and uh, always there to help us with all this kind of even offbeat programs, I must say, although that's an highly academic channel and forum. But for sake of overall kind of a change and some kind of bringing in some diversity to whatever activities we do on our academic forums, this was something which I had thought, and this could be done, I think, with all your support. So thank you so much, sir, and thank you, Ortho TV. It was great hosting you, both of you. And I must again apologize to Dr. R C Jha sir for
No, no,
coming in
no.
that kind of taking up his job, but probably I was getting in some questions.
You made my job easier. You
Thank you
asked
so
the
much.
questions which I was going to ask anyway.
So definitely time was a
Thank you.
constraint, and I do
Thank you.
understand that such
I know,
sessions
I
cannot
know.
be concluded within an hour or so. So maybe with promise and kind of
One
hope
and a half hours now that
that
we
we can,
have.
yes, sir, that we can again
Been an
meet.
enjoyable evening. Very
Definitely,
good.
sir. It was thoroughly enjoyable, no doubt about it. And so, in spite of all your busy schedule and being there at, I know you are there to attend a literary function at Varanasi. Still, you could take out time and spare time for this session, sir. Thank you so much again, Vivekanand Jha, sir. And we are looking forward to having more interactive session with you, not only on digital platform, but maybe physically also. So thank you so much, sir. It was great pleasure.
Thanks. Thanks to Dr. Nirmalji. Thanks to Dr. R C Jha, sir. Thanks to all the audience for being part.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Ah.